Joining us now, someone who knows a little bit about all of this, is Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and historian. And he has this new great on-demand course out called Defending America. You can go to defendingamericacourse.com. And it's great to have Newt on, as always. Phenomenal thinker and author, and also educating America all anew. Newt, great to have you on. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing well, and unfortunately, I think there's a lot to what Frank Luntz said last night in your show. I think if Republicans don't get their act together, we don't have much sign of that yet, that they could be in for a very bad election night this year. And I think it's all unnecessary. I think as the Democrats go further and further to the left and become stranger and stranger, they should be beatable. And I think that if you look at economic growth and you look at the deregulation program and you look at the quality of the conservative judges, there are more than enough things Republicans could campaign on. But I think that they are not focused, and I think they're demoralized. And I think that this is a very serious challenge for all of us who do not want to see a Nancy Pelosi speakership or do not want to see Chuck Schumer as majority leader of the Senate.
And do not want to see impeachment efforts underway, which I think is one good, not good thing, but one driver of turnout, even if the base is upset over this omnibus bill, over the deficit spending, the failure to repeal Obamacare. They do not want this president in this country to go through an impeachment effort that's tied to Stormy Daniels or anything frankly associated with this Mueller investigation. And just for that alone, they might turn out to vote.
You know, I think you've already got 60 or 70 Democratic candidates for the House who have signed pledges that they will vote for impeachment, you know, almost without any regard to what the case would be. It's just kind of like, look, they didn't want Trump to be president. They don't want Trump to be president. And if they get a chance, they're going to kick him out of the White House, which is really the rawest and most brutal kind of politics, which is what the Senate Democrats have been doing with all of Trump's nominees. I mean, this is the number of people who are still held up by the Senate who've been nominated to serve the United States is truly astounding, and there's no historic precedent for it. We've never before seen the kind of raw politics that Schumer's playing and the way in which they have allowed American officials to just dangle in the wind over purely partisan reasons.
I'm not going to let the president off the hook, however, on this, Newt, because I think he has unnecessarily at times confused the issue, not taken advantage of the clear opportunity to take his message on the road. His phenomenal results already with the tariffs against China. China now backing down on auto tariffs, are pledging more protection for intellectual property. Again, we'll see exactly whether that pans out. But after the withering criticism the president received for his stance on tariffs, his instinct, again, is proving in my mind to be correct. And yet he doesn't get much credit for that, and we're not really explaining this, in my view, to the American public, that all they hear about is how soybean prices are going to go up.
Well, no, I agree with you. And I think if the president had one really major failing as a leader in a free society, it's the inability to develop a message and stick with it for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, if he had gone to the country at any point last year and explained to the country what Schumer and the Democrats were doing in blocking all these appointees, which of course means that Obama holdovers and liberal career civil servants are cheerfully running all these agencies. I think 3 or 4 weeks of that would have moved things very dramatically. I think he's got the same situation coming up now. The spending bill got as bad as it did, in part because the White House wasn't laying down markers early on and meaning them and saying, look, guys, you send us this bill, we're going to veto it. And I think they finally at the very end realized how bad the bill had gotten. But the job of the White House team, in part, is to see that coming 6 or 8 weeks out and to lay down the markers in such a way that the whole country understands what's going on and the whole country knows what it should expect. And that's the kind of stuff we were not seeing.
Well, and I think, again, hammering the message on immigration, on trade, the rule of law, shrinking Washington, draining the swamp. They were profound issues, but stated in the resolve to solve them, stated with resolve by this president during the campaign to much success. And yet the Mueller investigation gets started, and I think the president gets, in some cases really understandably upset by this. I think he gets distracted. And then the media runs with every tweet and every comment, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the thing it does do is I think a lot of people just end up kind of tuning a lot of it out.
Right, and what it does is it eats up the time. So, the president, for example, I think has a huge winning hand explaining carefully to the country what MS-13 is like as a El Salvadorian gang that destroys people. I think he has a winning hand pointing out that you have cities. I mean, half of the murders in America are in 5 cities, and those are mayors who want their city to be sanctuary cities. How can you, if you're Rahm Emanuel and you have 4,000 people shot last year, how can you ask the federal government to allow people who are illegal criminals to stay in Chicago? I mean, it's not like there's a criminal shortage. And yet the president has, it is the bully pulpit, as Theodore Roosevelt said. When he focuses, he is very effective. But he tends to focus briefly, and then he either gets bored or he allows something else to distract him. Every time he spends time on the legal thing and blows up and goes through some kind of rant, it eats up time and it eats up space, and it weakens his ability to communicate with the country on things that would bring us together. And the amazing thing is, despite all the last month or so, he's actually been gaining in popularity. And I think that's because people, as you pointed out, people are looking at the Chinese backing down. They're looking at the North Korean dictator saying he'll consider giving up nuclear weapons. They're looking at the economy. And the fact is we may be going to the lowest unemployment rate in modern times. And that means, for example, Republicans ought to be in the African-American community pointing out aggressively that there will be fewer unemployed African-Americans under Trump than any time in modern history, and that's a good thing. Wouldn't they rather have high employment rather than high food stamps?
And he should be going to these black neighborhoods making that point. Sorry, Newt, but right. Just like he did during the campaign. I would take this message of conservative, economic opportunity coast to coast. Don't worry about the protests. You're for the American people. You're for this growth. You're seeing results already. We don't want to stop this. We want to keep it going and just and build the movement. But he cannot help himself from reacting to every iteration of this investigation. I can't imagine. I've represented a lot of clients. I can't imagine representing a client that continues to talk about the ongoing investigation. It's a nightmare.
You wouldn't have done it.
No.
And that's one of his problems. Look, in many ways, he's a remarkable person, but presidents have to have a level of discipline.
We're kind of losing some of your lines, Newt. So if you can, I don't know why, but maybe the connection's not great. But I want to hear everything you say.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just said presidents have to have a sense of discipline and a sense of focus that carries them beyond the immediate irritation. And of course, at one level, what Mueller and the others are doing is playing him like a fiddle. So they come in. They do something they know will enrage him. He then meets their expectations, and he goes on national television enraged, looking very unpresidential. And that weakens him, and they go home thinking they've had a pretty good day.
It emboldens the opposition, I think, and it distracts from the great advancement. Just this China move last night Raymond Arroyo is here with me. We've been talking about just the fact that Xi compromises. He backs down on these ridiculous tariffs they put on American autos. And again, we'll see if it pans out, but it's a sign of progress. No other president got that concession from China, and yet this president did, and was ridiculed.
And he
too.
also promised that he would enforce intellectual property rights. The speech that Xi gave yesterday to the Chinese business community was a revolutionary change in Chinese attitudes. And I agree with you. But I see this all around the world. I just came back from 4 days in the Persian Gulf in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. And their sense there that he is so much better than Obama was, and that he understands the problem so much better than Obama did. You're not going to get that on a number of the establishment networks. But the fact is, there's a reason that the Saudi crown prince came to the U.S. There's a reason that President Macron has called and said he wants to be part of any effort in Syria. There's great pressure on Theresa May and Great Britain to join in any effort. These are not the behaviors of a weak president. This is a very strong president who, if he learned one or two things about focus and communication, would, I think, become an extraordinarily effective president, and frankly would turn around the election this fall.
No, I completely agree. We're talking to Newt Gingrich here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Finally, Newt, Florida, a very important state. Before we let you go, could be $110 million spent on this race. Rick Scott challenging the incumbent Bill Nelson. How do you see this?
Well, I think Scott started the campaign with exactly the right thing. If you think Washington is a swamp, Nelson is part of the swamp. Well, Nelson's been here a long time. He hasn't fixed it. And I think that they've got to draw a very clear, sharp contrast both on the conservative liberal side and populist change Washington versus being part of the Washington establishment side. And Scott's proven to be a very formidable campaigner. So I would say that he has an even chance now of beating Nelson. And again, it's a great case study because we're going to find out that we have, as I said earlier, we're going to have the best employment numbers in the African American community, the best employment numbers in the Latino community, and Scott campaigning on that and pointing out that all this is happening despite Nelson voting against everything. I mean, none of this would have happened with Nelson's vote. So I think that Scott has a real chance to win this.
Newt Gingrich here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Newt, it is always so great to have you on, and I think your advice to the president, keep your eye on the prize here, which is your policies are working, and just preach the gospel across this country about conservative opportunity and the results that he's already gotten, and that'll do more to help him than any complaining about the Mueller investigation. And remember to sign up for Newt's course, and it's called Defending America course.com. DefendingAmericaCourse.com. We'll post this on our Facebook page and on lauraingraham.com. It's fantastic. It's an on-demand course, and a great deal on that this week as well. Newt Gingrich here on the Laura Ingraham Show.